All right, welcome to lesson 4.1, which is about unit rates. Our objective for this lesson is I can compute unit rates associated with ratios of fractions, lengths, areas, and other quantities. All right, if you remember from 6th grade, a unit rate is just a special kind of rate where the number in the denominator or the bottom of the fraction is 1. All right, so let's see, what does that look like? So, here's our example problem. Angela is wanting to become a TikTok influencer. She estimates that she gets 215 likes every half hour. How many likes does Angela get per hour? So here we have 215 likes in a half an hour. But we want to know likes per hour. So we are taking a non-unit rate and turning it into a unit rate. So step 1, we want to set up the ratio. And we want to do likes per hour. So likes are going to go on top, and hours are going to go on bottom. We have 215 likes, and that is for half an hour. So there's half of an hour. This is called a complex fraction when we have a fraction, 1/2, within a fraction. And we can think about this as dividing. 215 divided by 1/2. So that's what I'm going to do down here for step 2. We set up our ratio. We're going to simplify our fraction. So instead of a complex fraction, we're going to do 215 divided by 1/2. Remember, 215 is a whole number. To make a whole number a fraction, we put a 1 under it. Now we're going to keep, change, flip. So we end up with keeping 215 over 1, change to multiplication, flip the other fraction upside down. So now we have 215 times 2. You can use a calculator to get 430. 1 times 1 is 1. What this means is we have 430 likes for 1 hour, or just 430 likes per hour. And this would be our unit rate. Notice there is a 1 on bottom. And when we have a 1 on bottom of a whole number, we can take it away and just make it the whole number. It's just important that you keep the units attached to it. So likes per hour kind of sounds like speed. You might be familiar with miles per hour. We would write this as miles over hours, or MPH. The speed gauge in a car shows it as MPH. A common speed is 20 miles per 1 hour in a school zone. You see those flashing lights when you drive by a school zone. Next, we have 3 aides for 24 students. Now, unlike a regular rate where we would just put it in order, we have to decide what we want one of. Do I want 1 aide or 1 support staff member, or do I want 1 student? In this case, I want one of the smaller number. I want to know how many aides or how many support staff there are for a number of students. So I'm going to put aides on bottom, because that's what I want 1 of, and students on top of my fraction here. We have 24 students to 3 aides. What I really want to know is 1. How many students are there for 1 aide? To do that, I need to turn 3 into 1. To turn 3 into 1, I'm just going to divide it by itself. 3 divided by 3 gives me 1. If I divide the bottom by 3, I also have to divide the top by 3. 24 divided by 3 is going to give us 8. So there are 8 students for 1 aide or 1 support staff. And there's our unit rate. We have a 1 on bottom. Our next example, we have 135 words in 3 minutes. I probably want to find how many words are in 1 minute, so I'm going to put words on top and minutes on bottom. And it's okay to abbreviate. So I end up with 135 words in 3 minutes, but I want to know how many words are in 1 minute. Again, I'm going to start with the bottom. To turn 3 into 1, I have to divide by itself, 3 divided by 3, which means I need to do 135 divided by 3, which is going to give you 45 words in 1 minute. Notice again, 1 on bottom, 1 on bottom, 1 on bottom. These are all unit rates. Lastly, we have 5 quarts for every 2 pounds. We could go either way. We could do how many pounds in 1 quart or how many quarts in 1 pound. Pounds is a smaller number, so I'm going to put that one on bottom. So we're going to look at quarts on top, pounds on bottom. And I just abbreviated Q for quarts, P for pounds. All right, we have 5 quarts in 2 pounds. I want to know how many quarts are in 1 pound. To turn 2 into 1, I divide by 2. 5 divided by 2 is going to give me 2.5 quarts for 1 pound. So these are some examples of how to find a unit rate. These are examples of how to turn a rate into a unit rate and what unit rates look like. Now, we're going to use unit rates to compare different rates. So here, we have 2 pools are leaking. After 15 minutes, pool A has leaked, this should be a K, has leaked 2/3 of a gallon. After 20 minutes, pool B has leaked 3/4 of a gallon. Which pool is leaking faster? Now, normally, we would want to know how many gallons per minute. However, our gallons are in fraction form, which is going to make it a little bit messy to turn it into 1 minute, how much are you leaking. So we're going to flip it. We're going to do how many minutes for 1 gallon. So I'm going to put minutes on top and gallons on bottom, and we're going to check both pools. Pool A, 15 minutes, 2/3 of a gallon. Pool B, 20 minutes, 3/4 of a gallon. So let's look at pool A to start. Pool A has 15 minutes and 2/3 of a gallon. Now, just like we did up here where we rewrote our complex fraction as a division problem, we can do the same thing here. We're going to turn this into 15 divided by 2/3. To turn 15, a whole number, into a fraction, we just put a 1 under it. So now 15 over 1 divided by 2/3. We keep 15 over 1 the same. We change division to multiplication, and we flip 2/3 to be 3 over 2. And then we multiply. 15 times 3 is 45. 1 times 2 is 2. So I have 45 over 2. But that's not a unit rate. I want to know how many minutes it takes for 1 gallon to leak. So I'm going to put a 1 on bottom. To turn 2 into 1, I divide by 2. Got to do the same thing to the top. 45 divided by 2. Use your handy-dandy calculator. You're going to get 22.5 minutes for 1 gallon. So there's our unit rate for pool A. We're going to pause that, and we're going to go look at pool B and do the same steps. Again, minutes on top, gallons on bottom. Pool B has 20 minutes for 3/4 of a gallon. We're going to set this up as a division problem. 20 divided by 3/4. Put a 1 under 20. Keep 20 over 1. Change division to multiplication and flip our last fraction, so 4 is on top and 3 is on bottom. Now we're going to multiply. 20 times 4 is going to give us 80. 1 times 3 is going to give us 3. Now if we had stopped here, if we had stopped before we get to the unit rate, we would have 45 over 2 and 80 over 3. We have different denominators, which makes it really hard to compare numbers, which is why we want the unit rate, because if we have the same number on bottom, it's way easier to compare. So let's turn this into a unit rate. I want to know how many minutes it takes for 1 gallon. 3 divided by 3 gives us 1, so we do 80 divided by 3. 80 divided by 3 is 26.6 repeating. And Normally we don't like to put decimals and fractions, but in this case it's okay. All right, so there is our unit rate. And notice now that we have ones on bottom, we can compare. Pool A leaks 1 gallon in 22.5 minutes. Pool B leaks 1 gallon in 26.6 minutes. Which one leaks faster? In this case, it's going to be the pool that takes less time to leak the same amount. Since they're both leaking 1 gallon, so we want to look for the smaller number on top. In that case, it is pool A, because it only takes 22.5 minutes to leak a gallon versus 26.6 minutes. All right, go ahead and jump into your must-do and let us know if you have questions.